moves pretty fast.
Right, well today on this lovely EP3, we've done several mods before, but the guy is going for a set of ITBs, so we're excited to undertake that challenge today. Obviously we're going to map afterwards, but get some footage and some time-lapse obviously fitting these. You know, we're trying to make a little bit of an edit or a different version to cover the workshop work a bit more, as we've talked about before. So we're going to start initially by removing the inlet manifold, removing the fuel rail, removing the throttle body and removing the induction kit. So the linkage itself doesn't come assembled on the throttle bodies, it sort of comes in a separate packet. We've obviously fitted those and put those on, so if you look at the position, it fits on the, if you've got the throttle bodies upside down with the throttle position on the right hand side, it fits onto the N2 throttle bodies in that configuration there on the top hole, slid all the way to one side. The rod is probably, I don't know, maybe got about 5mm at each end on that with the adjustment, and then into the lowest hole to allow full throttle, obviously to allow it to close and to allow full throttle on that. That was our first sort of point of call. The second point of call, these 5 here across the bottom are obviously for the idle speed there, so they're obviously, we've taken those off at the moment because we've got to gain access for the bolts. Let's see if I can get the bolt from over there. We've got to allow access for the bolts. When those pegs are in, you can't get the bolts in, so we're looking at obviously how we're going to deal with that. There's a port underneath here for the EVAP, which is above the alternator, which we're not running. We did have some blanks, but there's no bottom in there and it's not tapered thread, so it would just basically wind all the way through and wouldn't go tight. So we put the bung back in and we're going to link it out across to the top port over here on the right hand side again, which will basically, that would normally go to your idle assist valve, which again we're not running on this car, so we'll link those two out. That should stop that problem basically of an air leak on either one of those two. The center one is for your map sensor. This is for your EVAP that would normally be on top of your throttle body if you've got it, but again we've not got that. Throttle position is obviously on the right hand side here. I think that's about it really from this point of view. Obviously this one here is for your brake booster. The backing plate doesn't come assembled on it, so we've taken the trumpets off, put the backing plate in and obviously assembled that. Your air intake temperature sender on this hole, this obviously a hole will remain, we've got nothing to blank it with, so that will remain a hole. Not that it really make any difference anyway, because it's only into the air filter side of things. Yeah, and apart from obviously adjusting these on any air bleed screws and stuff, which we'll have to do obviously once it's running, and to make sure that they're balanced, I think we're sort of about at a point where we're ready to assemble. Right, throttle bodies are on. Now, this wasn't quite as straightforward as people may like, or certainly I may have liked. Basically, you can see these little unions here. They've basically got a circlip on them, and the outer collar comes off, and this inner piece is actually threaded in. Now, underneath the inlet manifold, it's got 5 of those. You've got one for the map sensor, and then one for each branch. Obviously, this is for idle speed control, and obviously doing that. Now, those pieces underneath there, I don't know whether you can actually sort of see the, if I move my hand, you can see the orange pieces underneath there. But basically, we ended up having to unscrew 2 of them out from underneath the inlet manifold, and then taking all of the fittings off by removing the clips, which then allowed us access to get the bottom bolts actually into position, obviously from the inlet manifold into the head. That was a real faff. To be fair, with my big hands, I couldn't actually do it. I had to get Jensen to do it with his hands under there. Get them on. Obviously, once we do that, screw 2 unions in, which is obviously not a lot of room to get them back in, and then obviously fit them. That's probably about the worst part about the installation, to be fair. But once that was done, it wasn't too bad. Once we got that done, and we initially put it on, and we were going to do a base file on the car, and obviously get it running to get it up on the dyno, we realised pretty quick on that the throttle position sensor was reading 100% at 0 and 0 at 100%. Now, that has caused us a massive amount of issues over the last couple of days trying to sort that out. We did speak to Genby. They said there wasn't a solution to the problem. They didn't do a throttle position sensor that would work. It's been a little bit disappointing, this car, ain't it, I think, overall. I think the end result hasn't been as good as we expected.
That's what you're struggling with.
That's what I'm struggling with.
Yeah.
We had an Ultra Series manifold on there originally with a big throttle body, and last time this car was here it made 252 brake horsepower. Now we have tuned on the new throttle bodies and done our absolute best to get that, get everything out of it there is to get out of it. We quickly realised, didn't we, I think, to be fair, both of us, that we were going to not make the same amount of power that we previously had. And to be fair, from a set of throttle bodies, I was hoping we were going to make some power.
Anything, peak power, anything.
Yeah, peak power, anything, anywhere, and we haven't. This is unfortunately one of those stories where it hasn't worked out and we haven't made as good a results as perhaps we might have liked. Yeah, when we finished on, I believe we finished on 233. 233. Yeah, so we've lost best part of 20 brake horsepower, and it's lost power everywhere, not just in one spot. It's lost power from the get-go, and it hasn't made it. I think basically the answer is the throttle bodies are just not big enough.
Now, don't get me wrong, because we all love a K20 on throttle bodies. It sounds immense.
Oh, it does sound immense.
Looks
yeah,
great.
Yeah, it looks great. It sounds great. Everything about it. An extreme amount of cost as far as I'm concerned to fit these throttle bodies, and if it made the same amount of power I could live with that because you have the noise of the throttle bodies, but to only gain the noise of the throttle bodies and the looks of the throttle bodies but yet you lose 20 brake, I'm upset by that.
Yeah, I mean,
and it's not my money.
Yeah, there's some status around, for having throttle bodies on your K20, that, and I get that, and yes, like I said, it's really cool and it sounds immense, but it's a step backwards.
It is for this car.
And it's got some good mods on it. It's got a good exhaust system. It's got a good manifold on it.
Yeah, it's got everything it needs.
It's got all these things, and
when you normally tune, we're always say you look for a restriction, you fix the restriction, you move forward. The car always leaves with more power.
unfortunately this time we fitted a modification and took a big step backwards, and
because they are the restriction.
Yeah, they are the restriction because it's the only thing that's been changed. Yeah, so very disappointed, I feel.
But an honest video.
An honest video, and
this is what we're trying to. This is what we're trying to achieve here. Our mandate is to fit and map what the customer has asked us to do, which we have done.
He supplied us with.
Yeah,
and we've done that.
He supplied these parts, and we've mapped it, and we're happy with the work that we've done. But like Richard says, a little bit deflated because we wanted to see more power. We've not made it, and there you go. And like I said, that is the nature of our YouTube channel in some respects. You get great days, you get great results. You get bad days, and sometimes you feel like you've took a step back.
Yeah. Well, let's have a look at that graph.
Let's look at this graph.
Well, there you go, that's the graph. So red line was as you came in, and blue line is as you leave. As you can see, we've sort of lost power across the whole graph there. Like we said in the video, it's very disappointing.
There is 12 months between though, nearly 12
There is 12 months between them as well, but you know, I do feel that you can see the power and the torque it's lost, you know, sort of across the whole graph. So yeah, I think the throttle bodies are just not big enough. But anyway, on to the next one.